Welcome to the Akashic Library.
It's funny, isn't it? For some people, being alone feels like a punishment, something you have to avoid at all costs. But for others, it's this source of incredible creativity and peace. Solitude is such a powerful state, but it's so often misunderstood. So today, we're going to explore how to transform that time alone from something you just have to get through into something you can actually embrace. This ancient piece of wisdom from the Buddha really sets the stage for us. It suggests that solitude isn't about being empty, right? It's about finding this unique kind of delight, a quiet joy that you can only really access when you're by yourself. The big question is, how do we get there? And this is the heart of the issue. On one side, especially in our hyper-connected world, being alone is often linked to misery. We're talking loneliness, addiction, mental health struggles. But on the other side, it holds this massive potential for growth. It's a space for reflection, for meditation, for incredible achievement. So you see, the difference isn't the solitude itself. It's all about how we approach it. Okay, so here's our game plan. We've kind of framed the big question. Is solitude a friend or a foe? Now we're going to dive into 4 key practices to make it a friend. We'll talk about being your own best host, realizing we're always connected, learning to just sit with your feelings, and using that alone time to chase your personal dreams. Then we'll wrap it all up and reframe this whole thing as the solitude opportunity. All right, our first step is probably the most practical one. It's all about becoming your own best host. It's a simple little shift in your mindset, but it completely changes how you treat yourself when nobody else is looking. Seriously, think about it for a second. If you had a friend over, you'd be kind, right? You'd offer them something good to eat, make sure the place is comfortable. You wouldn't be a jerk to them, because if you were, well, they probably wouldn't want to hang out with you for very long. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre absolutely nailed it with this one. If we're constantly mean to ourselves, with that negative self-talk and all that criticism, it's no wonder we don't enjoy our own company. We basically turn ourselves into bad company. So the key here is to practice a little self-hospitality. Here are 3 super simple things you can do. First, watch that inner voice. Try speaking to yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. Second, feed yourself well. Don't just grab whatever's easiest. Cook yourself a meal with the same care you'd put in for someone you love. And third, prep your space. A tidy environment can have a huge impact on your mood. And honestly, the act of cleaning can be pretty meditative in itself. So now that we've covered how we treat ourselves, let's kind of zoom out and look at how we see ourselves in the world. This second point is a bit of a philosophical shift, the idea that we are always connected. I know this might sound a little contradictory, but so much of the pain of being alone comes from this feeling. Good old FOMO, the fear of missing out. We scroll through our phones, we see everyone else out having fun, and we feel this painful sting of separation. And that feeling can be so intense that it pushes people towards some really unhealthy habits just to numb it out. Now, I want you to contrast that feeling of FOMO with this experience from the Buddhist monk Sheng Yen. He was on a solitary retreat, and he didn't feel lonely at all. He felt like he was in company with all living things, even the ants and insects crawling around his hut. He found connection everywhere. And this gets right to the heart of it. Loneliness. It's a perception. It's not a fact. I mean, we've all felt lonely in a crowded room, haven't we? And as Sheng Yen showed us, it's totally possible to feel deeply connected even when you're physically alone. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said it best. We're disturbed not by things, but by the ideas we have about them. It's our idea of being alone that causes suffering, not the state of being alone itself. Okay, so this leads us perfectly into our third point. If we can get comfortable with the idea of being alone, we open up this really powerful opportunity, the chance to actually sit with our feelings and look inward. Introspection is just a fancy word for looking inside, Constantly being around other people can be a fantastic way to avoid doing this. So many of us fill our lives with noise and busyness for that exact reason, to avoid having to confront ourselves. But solitude, it gives us the chance to finally check in and see what's really going on. And look, when you do look inside, you might not always like what you see. You might find anxiety or anger or tension, maybe some unresolved thoughts bouncing around. And the first instinct is to run away from them or push them down. But the much healthier path, which is rooted in practices like mindfulness, is to just observe them without judging. By just acknowledging these feelings, accepting that they're there instead of fighting them, they often start to lose their power and just kind of dissolve on their own. All right, so once you start to make peace with your inner world, you create all this mental space for our final and most empowering point, using your solitude as an active, creative force to go after your dreams. Being around people all the time, as fun as it often leads to what you'd call a herd mentality. You know how it is. We start watching the same shows, talking about the same stuff, maybe even adopting the same opinions. And that can be a huge roadblock to figuring out and achieving our own unique goal. Solitude is the perfect antidote. Stepping away from the herd gives you the space to figure out what you actually want to do, without worrying about what anyone else thinks. This is the creator's solitude. It's that moment you decide to skip a party to build something for yourself, a business, a new skill, a piece of art. In that state, time alone isn't empty at all. It's incredibly full and rewarding. So really, the journey we've gone on here is all about a fundamental shift in perspective. It's about moving from seeing solitude as a punishment, a lack, or a void, to seeing it as the ultimate opportunity. An opportunity to be kind to yourself, to feel your connection to the world, to understand how you tick, and to build the life you actually want to live. When you start to embrace these ideas, time alone really does become your greatest asset. It becomes a space not of loneliness, but of joy, fulfillment, and creation. So the final question isn't really if you'll be alone, but what are you going to do with that precious time? What will you create?
Manifestation works when your conscious desires align with your unconscious beliefs. Next, break free from mental constraints in overcoming limiting beliefs.